What if I told you that the real reason a woman chases a man has nothing to do with beauty, nothing to do with wealth, and nothing to do with luck? What if the truth is something far deeper, something psychological, something Machiavellian? Niccolò Machiavelli understood human behavior better than most men today understand themselves. He knew that people don't follow the strongest man. They follow the man who controls himself. Not the loudest man, not the smoothest man, but the man whose presence carries weight. Most men today lose the woman they want for one simple reason. They hand over their power without even noticing. They over-explain. They overthink. They overreact. But Machiavelli would tell you, the man who cannot govern himself will never govern anything around him. In this video, we're going to break down 5 hidden rules Machiavelli understood. Rules that make a woman value you, respect you, and yes, chase you. Not because you manipulated her, but because your presence speaks louder than your words. Let's begin. 1. Control your emotions, or lose her respect. Machiavelli once said, "The man who conquers himself conquers all." At first, it sounds poetic, almost inspirational, but if you listen closely, it's a warning most men never truly understand. Because today, men believe that expressing every emotion is what makes them real. But Machiavelli would shake his head. He knew something far more brutal about human nature. Not every emotion needs to be expressed. Not every feeling deserves a reaction. And not every moment of weakness should be shared. Sometimes what we call honesty is just a lack of discipline. Think about it. When the woman you care about suddenly pulls away, when she stops replying as fast, when she becomes a little colder, a little distant, most men fall apart instantly. They overthink. They panic. They send long messages hoping to fix something that wasn't even broken. They confess, explain, and emotionally bleed in front of her, believing it will bring her closer. But it does the opposite. Because you're not being open. You're showing her that she has the power to shake your entire world. And nothing kills attraction faster than knowing she can destabilize you with silence. Now imagine the opposite. She pulls away for a day. Most men would crumble. But the Machiavellian man? He stays composed. He doesn't chase. He doesn't panic. He doesn't let his mind invent problems. He continues his day as if nothing happened, working, improving, building, moving forward. His silence isn't a game. It's a message. My emotions belong to me, not to the situation. And that message hits her harder than any words. Suddenly she's the one thinking, why isn't he reacting? Did I lose him? Is he falling out of interest? Why do I care so much about his silence? That shift, that psychological flip, is where attraction grows. Because women don't chase the man who collapses under pressure. They chase the man who remains steady when things feel uncertain. A man who reacts emotionally becomes predictable. A man who stays calm becomes mysterious, and mystery is one of the most powerful forms of attraction. Machiavelli understood that the strongest kind of power is not the ability to control others, but the ability to control yourself when others expect you to break. Your emotional discipline becomes your gravity, and that gravity pulls people toward you effortlessly. When you control your reactions, you gain respect. When you remain calm, you appear confident. When you stay grounded, you become the one she thinks about, even when she doesn't want to, because self-control is rare, and rarity is irresistible. So remember this. Every time you stay calm when most men would collapse, every time you breathe instead of panic, every time you hold your center instead of losing it, you rise above the crowd. You become the exception, You become the man who doesn't just survive uncertainty, you control it. And that is the kind of man Machiavelli believed was truly powerful. Not loud, not emotional, not desperate, but steady, silent, and unshakable. The man who conquers himself truly conquers all. 2. Stay mysterious. Predictability kills interest. Machiavelli taught a lesson most men still refuse to understand. The moment you reveal too much of yourself, you hand over the power to be controlled. And nowhere is this more true than in relationships. Because when she knows everything about you, your schedule, your habits, your fears, your thoughts, your goals, the way you react, the way you think, the way you move, you stop being a man of depth, and you become a man of routine. Predictable, simple, easy to read. And once a woman can predict you completely, she stops feeling the need to chase you. There's no adventure, no tension, no curiosity pulling her toward you. A man without mystery is a story she already knows the ending to. But a man who reveals himself slowly, a man who lets her discover him piece by piece, becomes a story she never gets tired of reading. You must be like a book she loves, not a book she finishes in one sitting and forgets. Most men think openness is a shortcut to closeness. They overshare their pain, their dreams, their insecurities, their past, not because it's the right moment, but because they want validation, reassurance, a sense of connection. But Machiavelli would say, when you give someone the full map of who you are, you also give them the power to navigate you. And once someone can navigate you, they can control you. This is why the strongest men in history did not reveal everything at once. They let the world learn them slowly, intentionally, strategically, not because they were distant, but because they understood human nature. People value what they cannot immediately access. They desire what they must earn. They chase what they do not fully understand. So share enough to make her feel close, but not enough to make her feel complete. Let her see your ambition, but keep some of your plans unspoken. Let her feel your presence, but keep parts of your world sacred. Let her understand your values, but keep the depth of your mind hidden until she proves she can hold it. This is not manipulation. This is emotional intelligence, because mystery is not about being secretive. It's about being selective. Show her parts of you that inspire connection, but protect the parts that define your power. Give her glimpses, not the entire view. Give her clues, not the entire explanation. Give her access, not ownership. Because the moment she feels there is more to understand, more to explore, more to uncover, she begins to invest emotionally, and investment is the root of attraction. When she wonders what you're thinking, when she's curious about your next move, when she notices you're not always available, not always predictable, not always an open book, you create a pull she cannot ignore. Her mind begins to chase what her heart cannot fully grasp. This is the gravity of the Machiavellian man, a quiet, powerful presence that draws people in without trying, without begging, without chasing. Remember, when you are too easily known, you are too easily forgotten. But when you remain just mysterious enough to keep her curious, you become unforgettable. Machiavelli understood that influence comes not from being distant, but from being discovered slowly. Let her earn each chapter of you. Let her feel that every new layer is a privilege. Let her work for the parts of you most men give away for free. because curiosity makes her think of you. Investment makes her value you. But mystery, subtle, controlled, intentional mystery, is what makes her chase you. 3. Let your mission come before her. A man without purpose slowly becomes a shadow of himself. Not because he is weak, but because he has nothing anchoring his strength. When a man wakes up with no mission, no direction, no reason to sharpen his mind or discipline his spirit, he becomes dependent on whatever gives him the smallest feeling of meaning. And often, that meaning becomes a woman. At first, it feels like connection, but gradually, it turns into attachment. And attachment becomes dependence. Your emotions start revolving around her choices. Your self-esteem rises and falls with her responses. Your focus slips, your ambition fades, and before you notice it, your life becomes a reaction to her behavior. This is the quiet death of masculinity. Machiavelli warned about this centuries ago. The man who abandons his mission loses the respect of others. And he knew why. Because when you drop your purpose, you drop your power. You drop the one thing that makes you unshakable. When your entire world becomes a woman, you unintentionally place your emotional survival in someone else's hands. You make her the center of your universe, and no woman wants that responsibility. She might enjoy the attention at first, but eventually, she feels the pressure. She feels the neediness. She feels the loss of her own freedom. No woman wants to be your world. She wants to be part of a world that already exists, a world built by a man who knows who he is, and that only happens when your life is rooted in purpose. Because when you focus on your growth, your goals, your work, your discipline, your energy changes. You move with certainty. You speak with clarity. You act with intention. You become harder to distract, harder to manipulate, harder to replace. Not because you're playing games, but because you're building something bigger than desire. A purposeful man doesn't crumble when someone pulls away. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't lose himself in emotional storms. He remains grounded, stable, and composed. Because he's guided by something deeper than temporary feelings. Women feel this immediately. They sense when a man has direction. They sense when his life is bigger than romance. They sense when he is committed to becoming someone stronger, sharper, and more disciplined, and that energy is magnetic. It's not loud. It's not boastful. It's not flashy. It's quiet power, the kind that draws people in without trying. So build a mind that cannot be easily influenced. Build a body that reflects self-respect. Build an ambition that fuels your days and strengthens your nights. Build a purpose that makes your presence feel heavier, deeper, more meaningful. Because purpose doesn't just create focus, it creates gravity. Gravity that pulls opportunities. Gravity that commands respect. Gravity that makes people, especially women, take you seriously. A man with purpose becomes a force. A man without it becomes a follower. And in relationships, life, and personal power, only one of those positions leads to genuine respect. Purpose creates power. Power creates attraction. And attraction created through strength lasts far longer than attraction created through dependence. Become the man whose life is already full, so full that inviting someone into it is a privilege, not a necessity. When you live like that, you don't chase, you don't beg, you don't cling, you simply rise, and everything meant for you rises with you. 4. Never react instantly. Power lives in the pause. Machiavelli wrote that the truly wise man observes before he acts. He doesn't allow the noise of the moment to dictate his behavior. He understands that reaction without thought is chaos masquerading as action. And in a world where most men fall victim to their impulses, this discipline creates immense, almost magnetic power. Most men today respond instantly to every emotion. She grows upset. They apologize immediately, hoping to fix something that may not even be broken. She tests them. They argue, justify themselves, or over-explain. She pulls away for a moment. They chase, double-text, or spiral into anxiety. Every instant reaction reveals a man's dependency. It exposes the fragility that most men work so hard to hide. It screams, even silently, that his inner world is controlled by the chaos of others. And when chaos rules you, respect slips through your fingers. Attraction fades, influence evaporates, power dies. But the Machiavellian man moves differently. He pauses, he breathes, he observes. What's really happening here? He asks himself. He doesn't assume the worst. He doesn't respond to the surface-level drama. He sees the patterns beneath, the tests, the emotions, the provocations, and chooses his response deliberately. Sometimes she isn't trying to hurt him. She isn't testing him to trap or punish. She's checking his stability. She wants to feel that he is grounded. She wants to know that he will not crumble when the world tests him. And when he responds calmly, with precision, not emotion, he shows something extremely rare in this world. A man whose inner life is his own. A man who is not controlled by fear, panic, or chaos. A man who holds his power in silence and lets it radiate naturally. Calmness is more than a virtue. It is a weapon. It is a form of psychological gravity that draws people in without effort. It signals security, strength, stability. It signals that your presence is a foundation, not a storm. And women, like all humans, are instinctively attracted to stability wrapped in mystery. Because calmness signals not just self-control, but a depth of character and an unshakable presence that very few men possess. Power does not lie in speaking the loudest. Power does not lie in proving yourself in the heat of the moment. True power lies in the pause, in restraint, in mastery over your own reactions. The Machiavellian man understands this. He doesn't let anger dictate his words. He doesn't let frustration dictate his actions. He doesn't let uncertainty dictate his energy. He watches, assesses, and moves with intention. Every pause strengthens him. Every measured action reinforces his authority. Every calm moment reminds the world that he is the one who controls his inner world, and by extension, commands respect externally. This is why power and attraction are inseparable from self-control, because the moment a man reacts emotionally to the chaos around him, he reveals vulnerability and volatility. But the man who pauses, who calculates, who observes before acting, he radiates a magnetic energy that cannot be ignored. She doesn't just notice him. She studies him. She wonders. She feels compelled to understand him. And in that wonder, in that curiosity, she invests. Because the rare man who does not yield to impulse becomes worth the pursuit. Calmness is more than peace. It is a signal to the world that you are grounded, unshakable, and in control. It is a declaration that you are not a puppet of circumstances or emotions. And when a man embodies this pause, this calm, this deliberate mastery, he becomes irresistibly attractive. Not because he plays games, not because he manipulates, not because he creates artificial tension, but because he has something every man claims to want, but few truly possess: control over himself, control over his energy, control over his reactions, control over his life. And in a world dominated by emotional chaos, that control is magnetic. It is power, and power is always attractive. 5. Never act like she's your only option, even if she is. This is not about playing games. It's not about pretending you're seeing other women, or acting flirtatious to provoke jealousy. It's about something far more subtle, far more powerful, and far rarer in men today. Having a life that is so full, so intentional, so magnetic, that no one can hold it hostage, not even someone you care about deeply. Machiavelli understood human nature better than most men ever will. He wrote that people value what others desire and lose interest in what appears desperate. Desperation is heavy. It's obvious. It smells of need, and need has no attraction. It has only control, dependency, and eventually resentment. A man who makes a woman the center of his world, who checks his phone constantly, who overanalyzes every word she says, who bends his schedule, his energy, and his mood to fit her whims, reveals his lack of internal gravity. He reveals that his world can be shaken by someone else's presence or absence. And in that moment, attraction dies. But the man with purpose, the man who lives deliberately, who builds, creates, and expands his life, he is impossible to dominate. When your time is filled with goals, hobbies, friendships, travel, learning, and growth, she notices the difference immediately. You don't need to text her first every time. You don't need to explain every pause, every silence, every change in mood. You don't need to beg for attention or validate your worth through her reactions. Your life shows it already. You are already magnetic, already valuable, already hard to reach. And there is one universal truth in human attraction. What is hard to get is always more desired. A woman doesn't want a man who waits for her approval. She doesn't want a man whose energy is dependent on her presence. She wants a man whose world is full, whose mind is occupied with ambition, whose emotions are anchored in something larger than desire, whose life continues to expand even when she is not around. Because when a man embodies this, when he becomes fully himself, he does not beg for her attention. He does not chase. He does not need. And that is exactly what makes her want to chase him. She begins to see him as a prize, not because he manipulated her, but because he created a life that demands respect. A man with options is powerful. A man with a life is unstoppable. And the most powerful part? He doesn't need to prove it. The world shows it. His energy shows it. His calm, confident detachment shows it. She may test him. She may pull away. She may flirt with the idea of leaving. But the man who is grounded, disciplined, and full of purpose, he doesn't panic. He doesn't react. He doesn't plead. He simply continues living. And in that space of quiet power, she begins to feel something she cannot ignore, the urge to earn his attention, the urge to deserve his presence, the desire to be part of his life, not the other way around. Remember this: a woman respects the man who can walk away. She chases the man who doesn't need to, a man who builds his life, who values his energy, who protects his time and his mind, becomes impossible to take for granted. Because independence is magnetic, because self-sufficiency is attractive, because power lives in the life you control, and the woman who sees that knows instantly he is rare, he is valuable, and he cannot be possessed. This is the final lesson Machiavelli teaches us. Attraction is never about desperation. It is about presence, control, and purpose. If you live a full, intentional life, she will naturally invest in you. She will naturally desire you, and she will chase you, not because you forced it, but because you made yourself the man worth chasing. These 5 Machiavellian rules aren't just tips. They're a mindset. Control your emotions. Stay mysterious. Focus on your purpose. Respond. Don't react. And never act like you're her only option. Master these, and attraction will follow naturally. Women won't just notice you. They'll chase you. If you found value in this video, hit the like button, subscribe to Machiavelli's Code, and turn on notifications so you never miss another lesson in power, psychology, and influence. Comment below. Which of these 5 rules hit you the hardest? We'd love to hear your thoughts and discuss them in the next video. Remember, power isn't given, it's earned. And the first step is mastering yourself.